Hi there. It's Tom and Tom podcasting from what appears to be different places and may or may not actually be. This
Yeah,
is my
I'm on the
what
continent anyway.
right. And this usually I have a green screen and you see my nice clean background. This is what's behind the green screen, the crazy man cave musician room.
That's what it actually looks like.
That's yeah. Today you get to see the real me behind. um, but we of course have started a new uh, enterprise, I guess, of not telling each other what we're going to be talking about until we
Right.
start talking about it.
So it was a surprise. Since you have the topic
Right,
today, this will be a surprise for me.
right. And this is the only podcast that you're ever going to find where we discuss something totally off the cuff, where we haven't written a script or, Tom and I have so much experience that we really don't need to prepare ananymore. We spent our whole lives preparing for
It's
this.
about 40 years preparing.
I got you beat, but it's all good. um, Today, I'd like to talk about the power and politics condition of most organizations. And by the way, other Tom, is in public. So if you hear voices in the background, it's because there are other voices in the background. and
It's because there are voices in the
That's
background.
right. If I'm doing the talking, I'll try to cut them out. But if you happen to hear some while I'm talking, it's unavoidable. um, so here's the thing about power is that every business I've ever worked within has politics. And and that's because every business I've ever been in had some sort of hierarchy. Even if the organization is relatively flat, you still have at least a few levels of authority in the organization. If you have 50 people, you're probably going to have at least three layers. You're going to have a senior leader who's like ultimately in charge, another layer of a few leaders who are working with the individual contributors. And that's like pretty minimalistic and not a bad thing because individual contributors should have some coaching. If they're going to do their best work, they need leaders who can coach them and guide them and help them stay aligned with the mission, vision, and values. So that's important even in a healthy culture. The difference between a healthy culture and its politics and hierarchy is what you reward. In large command and control, fear-based cultures, what gets rewarded is accomplishment, individual accomplishment. And because that's what gets rewarded, then leaders in particular, middle leaders, are compelled to take credit for things in order to bank points for career advancement. They want to move up, they want to expand their careers, they want increased responsibility. And so it behooves them to demonstrate their accomplishments. And and because that's the culture, the people they report to will reward that because they got there by being rewarded for that. It's just built into the culture. So how do you change a culture like that? Well, the easiest thing is to stop rewarding those behaviors. Like literally reversing the trend by when somebody says, I accomplished this, being reprimanded for that and saying, you should not be doing things. Your responsibility is to have a great team that's doing wonderful things. That's how you show accomplishment, is by their accomplishments. And when you start getting rewarded for other people's accomplishments, then your incentives change.
And you get punished for your failures in those sort of bureaucratic organizations as well.
Right.
And so your goal, when it's gone wrong, when the culture is dysfunctional, you don't own your failure and talk about how it's going to be addressed. You try to make it look like someone else's failure.
For sure. For sure.
Or you
Deflecting.
try to build a system where nobody's accountable, which is what we usually see in most organizations.
Right.
It's like something fails in a big way and nobody's actually accountable. No.
It's the blame coat of arms.
But I think the most interesting thing that we see, or not the most, the one I find most interesting, is you're rewarded in a lot of these cultures for how many people report to you.
Right.
And you're rewarded for how much money you manage. Yeah. So I've literally seen project managers who were able to take a $20 million project and deliver it for $10 million get punished for delivering it at half the cost, because they're supposed to manage $20 million. And instead they're managing 10.
They're not directly punished. It's not like somebody reprimands them for coming in under budget. It's more like when they list their accomplishments, they say, I managed a $20 billion project. And people go, wow, that's a big responsibility, and you were successful at managing the project. Whereas had you managed the exact same project for $10 million and you say, I successfully managed a $10 million project, well, that's not as impressive, is it?
You're not actually living up to what we expect of you. It's literally what they heard.
Right.
The other corollary is, right, how much money I'm managing. You'll hear people talk and boast about that.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone in these dysfunctional organizations boast about how much money they saved, ever. And they boast about how many people they're managing.
Right.
So if I'm doing a project and it takes 170 people to do, I'm rewarded for managing 170 people. If you deliver that same project managing 7 people, by the way, I've literally seen that difference, the ability, well run, to do something with 7 people that other people do with like 170. You're not rewarded at all. You're just managing a small team.
Right. And the answer to fix that, of course, is to reward outcomes and not and actually reward big outcomes with small investments. Like actually make that the thing that you look at, not just size alone.
Yeah, well, now you're getting into the technical details, which is, how do you do that, right? Everyone wants to boast managing $50 billion.
Right.
And if you're like, what I really want you to manage well is 1 billion, I just use B for fun.
Yeah.
It's like, people are like, no, I don't want to do that. I won't advance.
Right. And they're right in those organizations that have a dysfunctional culture.
Yes.
But we're not here. We are here to talk about dysfunctional cultures because they provide a great contrast to a great culture where people get promoted because they achieve great outcomes with minimal investment. And that's the thing that's rewarded.
And they get let go when they can't achieve the outcome. There's a corollary that's kind of brutal here, which is if you're transparent and you take ownership and you repeatedly fail to deliver, repeatedly with correction, you get let go.
Yeah.
In a functioning culture.
Well, I would argue that it depends, because there are different kinds of projects. There are execution type projects where the outcome is pretty well understood and the effort is pretty well understood, and it comes down to execution of whether you can get the outcome you are seeking. And then there's the other kinds of projects that are more speculative. We might call those experiments. And in the case of an experiment, if that's understood that you're trying something new, you're either trying to innovate or expand or venture into the unknown, then success is not measured by necessarily a positive outcome, but it can also be measured by what you learned to take into the next experiment.
Well, and I would add, if somebody's doing a lot of experiments, you want them to get in the habit, and they're really risky. So venture capitalists know if they bet on 100 companies, maybe 2 will really make their portfolio shine. So it can be very small.
Right.
You hope for 10 out of 100. And so they'll fund a founder who they funded before and failed if they believe they executed well on their objective of exploring the market, exploring the product, and looking for the fit. You see that outside of large organizations. I'm sure it existed at one point inside of 3M because it's a part of their lore. They had for a long time ago, when I used to work with the engineering teams at 3M, they could dedicate a reasonable percentage of their schedule to experiments. And they had a vision that like 1/5 of their products would be new every 5 years. So they were really looking for that innovation. I don't think that culture exists there anymore, but you can create that culture even in large companies.
Of course. I mean, Google is a case in point. John Doerr writes in his book about OKRs how when Google Chrome was first launched, they had a very lofty goal based on downloads. How many people downloaded Chrome to try it out? And they missed the mark grossly. Now, in some cultures, they would have said, well, okay, that experiment was a failure. And so we're apparently not going to be in the browser business. But in that culture, their failure taught them a lot of things. And they said, what did we learn? How are we going to take these teachings from this experiment and apply them to the next iteration? And so they tried again, and they did a lot better and still missed the mark because they raised the bar the second time around, because they had learned a lot and they thought they could do much better with what they learned, and they failed again. And they had more learnings, and they took those learnings into a third round and they raised the bar again. And that time they blew it out of the water.
When you're building an intentional culture, which we talk about in the book Wildly Successful, you can embrace aspects of experimentation and failure. In fact, you can ceremonialize them, structure them, which is what OKRs, objective and key results, did. Mm-hmm. And they even set that up with the expectation that you were going to miss a fairly large percentage of those objectives.
30%.
They wanted stretch goals. They wanted
Right.
you to try, learn, fail, struggle, to try to achieve something greater than you imagine. So
Right.
you can build that in the culture
Right.
uh, to achieve that.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
At Google at that time, their objective, their expectation, I should say, was that on average, you would get 70% of the outcome that you were looking for. The key result is the metric, the measure of, you might have multiple key results for one objective, but you try to keep the number of key results to a minimum. So if you can do it with one, great. If you need two, okay. Three, it's a lot, but okay. But you want to keep that number down to like three or less if you can. And the idea being that you're saying, here's an objective, here's the actual measurement of how we're going to evaluate whether we hit that objective. And if you get 70% on that metric, they consider that to be successful
Yeah.
because A, you pushed yourself, and B, you did, you didn't completely fail.
I won't name any places, but I've seen OKRs rolled out in very dysfunctional organizations. And of course, what they do their best to do is to make sure that key results aren't easily measurable and unbiased. And they change the whole way they have conversations around those things. But in a functional culture, those are real. Those are measures that we would expect an AI to be able to actually measure the data that's telling you that you hit it or not. Like it would just
Right.
there's no judgment. It's a number. You hit it or you didn't. You got that number of downloads or you didn't. You saw a
Exactly.
result. You look for key results that are unbiased and measurable. But the goal is not to game to reach them. The goal is to try to innovate to reach them.
Right.
If your people are gaming to reach them, creating little stunts to reach their key results because they just want to hit the number, then that's also a sign of a dysfunctional culture.
Right. Or just setting objectives that are easy enough to hit that you have a high probability of success because your organization can't tolerate failure.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
true in
part of the
most large
politics.
organizations. Yeah,
That's part of the politics of valuing success over everything. And success becomes uh, uh, an abstraction that is created by the leaders. The leadership sort of creates an abstraction that says this is success, and then everybody figures out how to fit into that mold of success. Whereas if what you're measuring is outcomes, then you can
yeah,
set the bar higher and you can say, hey, we didn't hit the outcome we were looking for, but we got pretty close and we learned some things. And we can now take those teachings that we got and do better the next time. That's a healthy culture, and it requires a different politics and a different power dynamic than what we often see.
and you can structure that and you can ceremonialize that to make it more likely to replicate in your startup as you go into your next funding round. So if
That's
you're
right.
there, if you're going into a new funding round, if you're getting ready to scale or grow, or you just want to fix yourselves now, we'd love to help
That's
prevent
right.
these, just go after the good stuff and skip doing the bad entirely.
Right. And you can reach out to us at beintentional.biz if you would like our help. We are here for you. And I would add, as I often do, that if this video was helpful to you in and of itself, to go ahead and click the like button, maybe drop us a comment and tell us how this might have helped you. And as Tom was just indicating, Click that subscribe button down there. We need that. I know I harp on it at the end of every video, but I could harp on it at the beginning of the video like a lot of podcasters do, and you'd be annoyed. So if
I
you're
don't
still
see a
here,
harp behind you. Of all those stringed instruments, I see no harp.
I have a whole box of harps right here. It's a blues harp.
Oh, all right. Next time we meet.
And with that, this is Tom.
I'm Tom.
Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.